Hello everyone, my name's Phoebe, and this is the tale of the time I got my coworker from Baskin Robbins fired. So, I got hired at a Baskin Robbins up in North County, San Diego, and I live 30 minutes away down in South Bay, San Diego. So, up in North County, it's very much the rich area of San Diego, all the high-end lawyers and doctors and business people. So, it was a very rich area. And I got hired by this businessman who just wanted to own a Baskin Robbins on the side. Like, this was his side job. His main job was like this corporate company, blah, 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 blah. And so he hires me, and he wanted to make this specific Baskin Robbins that had like the worst Yelp reviews, like the worst Google reviews. He wanted to build it up and make it so much better and like be like the top one in San Diego. That was his goal, and he was a very ambitious person, and that's what I liked about him. So I was feeling really comfortable like working for him. And so when he's like hiring a whole bunch of like new people, he mainly hired a bunch of like teenagers and like young adults. I was 18 when he hired me, so it was a lot of like young kids who didn't want to work there, but their parents forced them to like build character. So he hires a bunch of kids, and one of the people he hires to like become his assistant manager was this kid he had known like for years, I think. I know he had like coached his kids in basketball. He would come over to have dinner with his family, and he and his sister were owning like the Baskin Robbins, and she was going to be managing it, and he needed an assistant manager. So he asked him one day, being like, hey, do you know anyone who would like, to help manage a Baskin Robbins that I'm opening up? And he was just like, me? And so he said yes. So he hires him, and he's, I think, a year or two older than me. He was still like around like my age group, so he was very young. And he didn't even do like much managing. It was mainly like having the title there so he can like leave him with like another kid to work with. And so that's who he was. So the day that we had our orientation, filling out all our paperwork, meeting like the team, the new Baskin Robbins team, under new ownership, blah, 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 blah. He like presents like this kid, and his name's I'm going to call him Sean. So, his name's Sean. And so he's like, hi, this is Sean. Like, I've known him for a very long time. He's going to be your new manager, along with my sister. Like, blah, 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 blah. And so he's presenting Sean. And I'm just like, oh, whatever. Another person. I don't really care. And when we start working, I never worked the same shift as him. So I was always morning. He was always night. So as I was leaving, he was coming in, and we would only make like small talk, like, hi, like, how's it going? Like, how was the store today? Oh, it was busy. A little small talk like that. And so then one day, my other coworker, she had lived in South Bay too, so we were just like, she was very hardworking. And so me, her, and Sean were the three like main people who like worked with like the younger kids, because we were like the oldest ones there. And so we were kind of like shift leads in training in a way, I guess. And so she had told me that she couldn't work the night shift that she was working, like if I could cover it. But I was working at another job because I had 3 jobs. Yeah, I had 3 jobs, so I was working one of my jobs there. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't come in. Like, I hope you feel better, And so I don't know who ended up taking her shift, because we had a group chat, but for some reason this specific coworker couldn't be on the group chat, so she would DM people like through their phone like directly, and so I never knew who took her shift. So that very next day, it was my first time opening by myself. Like, my manager was gonna come in later. I was gonna open and be like, look what I did, and she was gonna be like, good job, bad job, like something like that. And so I come in, and the store was a complete mess. Like, awful. Awful, 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 awful. And so, like, there was things that needed to be restocked. The bathroom was a mess. There was skid marks all over the floor, so I knew no one mopped it. There was a huge shipment delivery, so, like, the freezer was packed with ice cream and boxes and everything. And then, on top of that, another shipment was coming in as well that I had to sign for. The computer wasn't working. Like, I had to partial 9 tubs. And what a partial is when a tub of ice cream gets really, really low, you take it out, because then it looks dirty or messy. So you take it out, and there's an ice cream tub directly underneath it. You take that out, you grab one from the freezer, one that's frozen solid, you put it inside on the bottom, and you place the one that was previously on the bottom on the top. I know that was a lot, but, like, very confusing. You put it on the top, and then it's, like, a nice scoopable temperature. Well, the tubs of ice cream are 3 gallons. They're huge. They're round. I'm like, I don't have no muscles. It's a little bit of definition. But I have no muscles. Like, so I had to do 9 of them, rocking back and forth from the freezer, back out there, back into the freezer, back out there, taking out them, moving them around. Like, it's a big ordeal, and it was, like, so much. And so I was dealing with that. I was dealing with the computer that wasn't working, customers that are coming in, trying to buy ice cream, but they can't because the computer's not working. I'm, like, on the phone with my manager, like, hey, like, this needs to be done. Like, I need some help. Like, how do I fix this, you know? And on top of all of that, it was day 2 of my period. So I was very, very emotional. And since I was very emotional, once I had finally gotten everything done and I finally had a chance to breathe, I went on our group chat, and I shouldn't have done this. I admit I should not have done this. I go in the group chat, and I'm like, hey, for whoever worked last night, here's a list of what you guys forgot to do. You know, and it's like all like the cleaning stuff, 9 partials I had to do, blah, 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 blah. And so then I get a message, and it's from Sean. And he flips the script on me, and he's like, it was me. I was working that night. I did do all those things, blah, blah, blah. Like, and so what if it's a little messy? I come in all the time, and if it's a little messy, I just clean it up. Like, you should just do it. Like, I don't know why you have to be so lazy. What? What? Like, I did all of it. I had cleaned everything. I had made sure, like, everything was perfect, you know? Like, I am only now telling you that this wasn't done, you know? So, like, that got me really, really upset. And since I was so emotional, like, I started crying a bit. I went into the freezer, and I was like, like, sink back into my skull. Like, it was bad, but, like, not that bad. I was just really emotional, and, like, it really hurt my feelings. And so then my manager, like, she comes in, she messages the group chat. She's like, hey, guys, we're not going to, like, write down things that need to be done on the group chat anymore. This is for only, like, covering shifts and things like that. Write everything else inside of our pink book. And our pink book, it was, like, our little holy grail. Like, you open it up, you put the date on it, and you write down, like, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, and, like, whoever does it, you know, you initial your name so you know who's working. And I checked the pink book. It was empty. There was nothing there. Nothing that said, hey, like, today was busy. We didn't do these. Can you please do this for the next morning? Like, blah, 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 blah. So, of course, I went on the group chat, like, unknowingly, like, knowing who worked. So, I went on the group chat. I shouldn't have done it, but I did. So my manager, she, like, asked me, she's like, hey, like, are you okay? And I'm just like, like, he really hurt my feelings. Like, he, like, made me seem like this bad guy, you know? And it sucked. And the very next day was my first day ever working with him. Ever. Like, first ever shift, like, working with him. And I was just like, oh, great. Like, I hate confrontation. I didn't know if he was gonna, like, treat me, like, poorly because of what I did, if, like, whatever, you know, if he was gonna keep putting, like, the blame game on me or anything like that. And I go into work with him, and he just acted as if, like, nothing ever happened. Hi, Phoebe, like, how are you? And so I tell him everything, and I'm just like, hey, like, what you did really hurt my feelings. I didn't appreciate you calling me lazy. I had done everything. There was just so many other things going around, and that's why I got so upset. Like, I'm sorry for posting it, but you also, like, made me look like this bad guy, and, like, I'm not a lazy person, you know? And he's like, oh, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I made you cry, everything like that, blah, blah, blah. Like, we were good. We were squared. So I was like, all right, great, you know? So the next week rolls by, and then I get a message from our group chat, and it's Sean, and he's saying, oh, hey, so for whoever worked the last shift, like, you guys missed all these things. You know the schedule. You know that I worked. Like, it's written on the schedule that I worked that last night. I wrote in the pink book, hey, the store got a little busy. We didn't, like, get to do these things. Can you please do it in the morning? It was like 2 partials. And you know what? He was working with another person. With another person. Like, one person? By themselves? No muscles? 2 people. Like, you can do it. It's easy. You can do it. So, he was acting as if, like, nothing ever happened. And we were just told, too. Don't do that on the group chat. Write it in the pink book. And I did. And he's going off on the group chat as if we weren't just told not to do that. So, I tell him off, and I'm like, we did those things. We didn't do these things. We wrote it in the pink book for you. End of story. You know? And so, from then on, I saw, like, you a snake. You two-faced. Like, I don't like you, you know? And he would still come into work being like, hi, Phoebe. How are you, Phoebe? How's the store today? And I'm just like, fine. Whatever. Like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, you're rude. You're two-faced. I don't like you. Like, you. And so, then, like, a month or so later, we end up having to work together. Like, consecutively. Like, together. And I was just like, oh, great. I hated it. And so, we end up having to work together. I'm being civil because as much as I don't like this guy, I know we have to work together. Like, it's no big deal. So, we talk. Like, everything's kind of fine. And then I see him one day. He's just sitting down, eating lunch. And it wouldn't be a big deal, but he was working for 4 hours. He doesn't get a lunch break. I get a lunch break. He gets a 10-minute break to sit down for 10 minutes and then go back to work. I have to sit down for 30 minutes and have my lunch break. And he was doing it. So I was like, hey, like you should be working. You shouldn't be sitting down, like, doing nothing right now. And he's like, well, the boss told me, like, blah, 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 blah. So blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay, like, whatever. But I'm just letting you know, like, I've worked, like, other jobs before. And you get a 10-minute. You don't get a 30-minute. I do. And he's like, well, I can call the boss right now, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I don't do what you want, I guess. I'm going to go work, you know? And so he ends up calling him, and he's like, so anyway, like, the boss man told me this, so, like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And because of that whole ordeal, my manager, the best, I love her. She's great. She, like, tells her brother, she's like, please stop pairing them together. Please stop putting them on the schedule together. They hate each other. You need to stop. And so he does. And it's great. So then, whenever Sean comes into work, it's no longer, hi, Phoebe. Now it's just like, straight face, walks past me, says bye to my boyfriend, doesn't say bye to me. And I'm just like, beautiful, great. I love it, you know? At least he's not being nice to me anymore. And so then, probably about a month or so later, like a couple months later, like a little bit down the road, we end up getting a message on the group chat from our cake decorator. And she's like, hey, you guys, is there any cakes that need to be done for, like, the next day so I can come in, do them really quick, and then, like, go home? Because, like, she had another job. She had, like, 2 kids. So we knew she was busy. We kind of, like, revolved everything around her schedule, not around, like, oh, yeah, you can have your cake made, like, the next day, blah, blah, blah. Because, like, she has a life, too. We only had 1 cake decorator at the time. So Like everything was revolved around her in terms of getting cakes done. And so she messages us, and I look over like inside of like her little space, I guess, where like she does like all the decorating and things like that. And we have like this little like section where like you like put up the pieces of paper and like it sticks. And so we always had it from like this needs to be done first to like this can be done last, you know, in terms of date. And so I look at it and I'm like, oh no, like you're fine. There's no cakes that need to be due tomorrow. Like everything looks good. Like it's only like for like a few days later or something like that. And she's like, okay, thanks. And then Sean comes on. And he's like, yes, there is. Like I made one this morning. Blah, 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 blah. It's for so-and-so. And I'm looking around and I take a picture and I'm like, where? I don't see it. I'm here working. I don't see it. So obviously there's no cake. And so he's like, yes, there is. Like it's there. Like I made it. And so I'm looking around like on the desk and everything. And I see like this folded up piece of paper, right? Like by the wall, like away from everything, by like the pencil holder case thingy. And so, why am I holding a pen? And so I see it there, and I open it up, and I see it's that cake order that he's talking about. So I fold it back up, put it back where I found it, take a picture of it, send it to the group chat, and I'm like, is this it? And he's like, yeah, it's that one. And I'm like, okay, like, to our cake decorator, like, we found it, there's only one. She's like, okay, I'll come in. So I put it up, and I noticed that it doesn't say if it's paid or not. And we always have to write down, like, if it's paid or not, because then, like, if it's paid, it's like, oh, here's your cake, bye, have a good day. And if it's not paid, you know, we kind of, like, hold it hostage, I guess, until they pay for it, and then it's like, okay, here's your cake, bye, you know. So I see it, and I write it on the group chat, and I'm like, hey, do you know if this cake is paid or not? And he's like, oh, yeah, they paid for it, like, everything's good. And I'm just like, okay, well, make sure to write it down next time so we know. You know, like, nothing mean or malicious, like, you need to write it down, you know? I'm just being like, hey, just write it down next time. And, like, he's like, okay, whatever you want, queen. Really? So, I took it as a compliment, and I was like, thanks for calling me queen, crown emoji. And he's like, oh, well, I call everyone king and queen, like, trying to play it off as though, like, whatever, I don't know. And so my boyfriend, since he's working with me that day, he messages on the group chat, and he puts the gif where it's like, gay. And Sean DMs my boyfriend, like, privately. And he's like, hey, I think our other coworker took offense to it. And our other coworker was, like, flamboyantly gay. Like, rainbow hair, fire red hair. Like, he would always change his hair color. He was very open about him being gay. Like, it was not a secret. Like, you can look at him and be like, oh, that guy's gay. Like, no joke. No joke. He was so out there. And so my boyfriend's like, oh, why? Like, did he tell you? And he's like, no, like, I think he's gay. I think he's gay. I think... You think? You think? The whole world knows, and you're thinking? What? Like, so, like, me and my boyfriend were, like, laughing. We were, like, tearing up. We're like, he's so stupid. He's so stupid. You think? And we asked our coworker, too. We're like, hey, what did you think about this? Like, were you offended? And he's like, no, it's a joke. It's funny. You weren't, like, being malicious or anything. And so then, like, about, like, it's always, like, a week later that things go down. But, like, yeah, like, around, like, a week or two later, all of our cake orders, like, were getting, like, messed up in some way. Like, for 3 days in a row. And it would be, like, one wasn't the correct color that they wanted. One wasn't, like, the right shape that they wanted. One was one where, like, they wanted it this day, and he wrote it down for a different day. So they're coming in being like, where's our cake? And we're like, we don't have it because they wrote it down for a different day. And you always have to write down, like, if you're taking the cake order, you have to write down your name. That way, if anything goes wrong, like, you know who took it and, like, why they wrote it down wrong, you know? And so it was all Sean's. So because all of these things kept happening, our owner messages him privately, and he's like, hey, like, Sean, like, what's going on? What's going on with all of these cake orders, man? Like, what's up? And Sean just completely flips his lid. He's like, well, why don't you tell Phoebe to stop being a little cunt? What? What did I do? I didn't do anything. Like, the most I said was, like, I was playing along, like, calling myself a queen. Like, what did I do? And so because of that, our owner was like, hey, Sean, like, that was wildly inappropriate. You should not have said that. Like, I think we're going to have to let you go. I'm sorry. You know? You know what he says? Bet. 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 Like, who says that? Who says that to their boss? To their boss. Like, oh my God. She was just so, like, crazy and so two-faced. And that's the tale of how I got my coworker fired. And it's pretty great. And if you want to see more videos like that, go ahead and like the video, subscribe for more, because I've got a lot more tales to tell. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.